I'm Claire Newton. I'm a psychologist, speaker, trainer, and coach. As a result of all of this looting and violence, there's been a tremendous amount of loss, both physical loss in terms of the businesses and buildings and so on that have been burned, but as well as a loss of our kind of understanding of the world as we knew it, our way of kind of thinking about our lives in South Africa. And with loss comes grief. Grief is our emotional reaction to loss. It's the emotion that we feel when something, or could be someone, is taken away from us. And you may associate grief with the death of a loved one, but grief is also any kind of loss. And as I mentioned before, that loss, just that loss of the world as we knew it, the loss of your business and so on, is going to result in a range of emotions. I spoke about reactions to trauma, but we also have reactions to loss. For some of you, it will be a physical loss. Your property, your business, your goods have been looted or burned. For some of you, it'll be the loss of the world as you knew it, your understanding of what it was to live in South Africa and how it was to live in South Africa. For some of you, as a result of this looting and burning and the violence, it's going to be the loss of your hopes and dreams, the plans that you had that have now been destroyed because there's no longer the money or the property or the business. Whatever it is, in experiencing loss, you're going to have a range of emotions. And again, those emotions are emotions that are a very normal response to loss. What are those emotions? There's going to be shock and disbelief. And I think in those first few early days, most of us just couldn't get ourselves to believe that this was happening. Just the horror of it. It was just affecting most of us, that we were quite numb, quite horrified, and that real sense of trying to accept what was actually happening. Some of you may well have moved through this, and some of you may still be there, that kind of sense that we've even experienced this. It's almost like your head knows it's happened, but your heart is still trying to catch up to that. Profound sadness is a symptom that we have as a result of loss. Feelings of emptiness, feelings of despair, a yearning. There could even be a feeling of loneliness if you are quite isolated and friends and family and your support groups are far away in other provinces and we can't get to them. You may cry, you may feel emotionally unstable, and just allow that. It is what it is, and the best way to process loss is to literally allow yourself to feel those feelings, to just go through them rather than trying to avoid them or go around them or block them in any way. There may be feelings of guilt. I find with a lot of my clients, the guilt is around things that I should have done and I didn't do. Actions I should have taken that I didn't take, or that I did take and I shouldn't have. It's all around the shoulds and the shouldn'ts. It's the second guessing yourself. You may even be feeling guilty about certain feelings that you had, that you're beating yourself up about. Perhaps for feeling scared, perhaps for not volunteering to be out there, perhaps for what you did or what you didn't do. It could be anything. One of the symptoms of loss and grief is anger, that wanting to lash out at other people, to perhaps to point a finger at them for some sort of injustice that's been done to you, for wanting to blame others. Anger is a natural response to loss. What we just need to keep in mind is that we can't act on that anger and act it out. We need to feel it and we need to process it, but in healthy ways that are not going to continue the destruction and perpetuate more violence. When we experience grief and loss, there are a number of tasks that we actually have to work through in order to get to that place of accepting what has happened. And the first task is to accept the reality of the loss, to accept the reality that what has happened in South Africa is that places have been burned, have been sabotaged, shopping malls have been looted, shops have been destroyed. And accepting the reality that it has happened and nothing can make it unhappen is the first task that you will need to kind of come to terms with in order to process the loss. The second task is to really just experience and allow yourself to experience the pain of that loss. Loss is painful, both physically and emotionally. And when we talk about experiencing the pain of loss, it's about not trying to avoid it. It's about not trying to block it out, but actually allowing yourself to feel that pain. And all emotion actually has a physical kind of sensation that goes with it, some place in our body where we physically feel a sensation. And the emotion then will be that's that deep-seated sadness. Allow yourself to go through that. Don't block it. Don't avoid it. Don't distract yourself from it unnecessarily. Just try and sit with it. And if it does become too overwhelming at any one particular point, then yes, distract yourself or change the subject, of just avoid it. But try and allow yourself then to come back and just sit with that pain, to go right through it, to process it. Another task of loss is just to adjust to the new environment. You may have to adjust to a slightly changed way of living. You may have to adjust to a new way of seeing the world. You may even have to adjust to a new way of seeing yourself. The final task of loss and grief is to reinvest energy into life. It's about letting go of the world as you knew it, of how it used to be in the past, and reinvesting energy and thought and motivation into a new way of being and thinking and living.